Oh, hello, video. What are you doing there? I totally expected to see you there because you pressed the play button. Are we ready to go? Here we go. I'm going to start the audio recording now.
So many things.
Australians, have you ever wondered...
I screwed up. Sorry, I thought you were starting Alpha Geek. Or the TV.
No, already did.
Well, I've ruined everything. Goodbye, everybody.
All right, here we go.
Australians, have you ever wondered what a nickel is? Apparently it's 5 cents. So give it to Tom at patreon.com/acedetect.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, September 18th, 2015. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today is Jennie Josephson, producer of the Daily Tech News Show and our co-contributor for the day. How's it going, Jennie?
Hi.
Good to see you. I'm excited, and the reason Jennie's joining us is that we also have staff writer from Tech Republic, Erin Carson, who recently visited NASA headquarters to talk to them about virtual reality. How lucky are you, Erin?
Super lucky. Very cool gig is what I was thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I really enjoyed your articles about that. We're going to talk a little bit about what NASA is doing with virtual reality, how they've been doing it for what now, Erin? 20 years? Is that right?
Just about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about 1992.
And what that might mean for the virtual reality headsets you might be sticking on your own face soon. Len Peralta is also here to illustrate the show. How's it going, Len?
It's going really well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to hear about the future or the past of VR.
Now, I know you can choose from anything we talk about on the show to illustrate when you do your live drawing. So I expect you'll probably choose Microsoft's new software-defined networking Linux distro. But you might think about Erin's story.
You know what? It's funny. I actually made a really quick change in the drawing here after meeting Erin. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I'm intrigued now. Stay tuned, folks. The answer may surprise you. Let's get into the headlines. Thanks to TNinja3000 on our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com, for submitting our top story. 9 to 5 Google obtained exclusive internal documents describing a new version of Google's Chromecast and showing a circular rather than an oblong form factor, and available in 3 colors, red, yellow, and black. The documents mention improvements like improved Wi-Fi, we're assuming 802.11ac, home screen content feeds, something called Fast Play to get your video playing faster, Chromecast audio, which lets you plug your Chromecast into speakers using any kind of aux cable. 9 to 5 Google also expects Spotify to add Chromecast support, and all of this is likely to be part of Google's announcement, which is planned for September 29th.
Well, I've always wanted an oblong dongle, so I'm already excited.
Well, then you're sad because they're moving from oblong to circular.
Well, maybe what will make it up for me is that this Chromecast might actually work with my Wi-Fi, because I bought one.
That would be an improvement.
I was super excited, and all it did was ultimately hijack my entire Wi-Fi so that my laptop kept trying to connect to Chromecast, and then the dongle eventually got really hot, stopped working, so I put it away and bought a Roku. But I will be very excited to give this another try because it's such a great premise.
Yeah, I like ours, but I do run into that issue where sometimes you press cast and it just takes forever or it just doesn't work. So hopefully they've resolved some of those things. Onward to you, Jennie.
Oh, right. I don't just get to sit here and passively listen to you read things. EFC 88 sent us the Guardian report that Apple senior legal counsel Mike Maletic met with officials from the California Department of Motor Vehicles about autonomous vehicle regulations. The 1-hour meeting took place on August 17th between Apple and the DMV's Deputy Director Bernard Soriano, Chief of Strategic Planning Stephanie Doherty, and Deputy Director and Chief Counsel Brian Soublé.
So, what could they possibly be talking to the California DMV about?
iPads.
Any guesses? Right, they just want to bring some iPads to that department that happens to deal with self-driving cars. Erin, if you had to guess, knowing what we know, which is virtually nothing, how likely do you think it is that Apple will do a self-driving car?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's a few of these really, I don't want to say pie in the sky, that's too drastic, but these very large, very lofty kind of topics that are kind of floating out there for Apple, and it's like self-driving cars. And then whatever maybe someday they're doing with like an AR device or something. So to me, it seems like that's what's floating out there. But the funny thing I was thinking about is I think that with autonomous cars, this is the most fascinating that like regulation will ever get, just because it's so interesting with the interplay of like, you know, ethics and yeah, I mean, how are you really going to, you know, totally get a car to react to certain, you know, very odd situations that occur in traffic that can be just one-offs, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, this is the time when regulations can really make a difference and are interesting versus, you know, someday when we're all in self-driving cars and we're just complaining about the regulations that slow them down on the way to our house or something. It's going to be all boring.
Sure. Yeah.
I do think Apple is certainly investigating self-driving cars. They're obviously talking to California about this because they want to test something regarding self-driving cars, and they want to make sure they're on the right side of the law. Whether that means they're still making a self-driving car or just making technology that would go into a self-driving car, I'm not convinced one way or the other. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Apple Insider reports that iFixit's teardown of the new iPad Mini 4 reveals 2 gigabytes of RAM and a 5,124 milliamp hour single-cell battery, smaller than the iPad Mini 3's 6,471 milliamp hour battery. Other findings include a fully laminated display, makes the display look better, split Wi-Fi antenna array, so there's one next to the camera and one down near the speaker, and a repairability score of 2 out of 10. That's not very good if you don't know how the scale goes. 10 is the best.
Yeah, that's the time to get a new iPad on your plan that you should always get from the Apple Store when you buy anything there, because ooh.
Yeah, just be real careful with that. Although, frankly, I've never, I mean, knock on wood, but at this point, it's what, I think my iPad's like 7 years old, 6 years old. Is that possible? No, it can't be possible. It's like 5 years old. And it's been fine. You know,
yeah.
Till just now. Till I said that.
Yeah. As a clumsier person, I have cracked the screen of every Apple device I've ever had, so that fixability, repairability thing is always important to me. All right, Nintendo's Shigeru Miyamoto posted to Facebook today that the Wii U game Star Fox Zero will be delayed until early 2016. Mr. Miyamoto said a 2015 release was technically possible, but the company wanted to, quote, polish the game a bit more so that players will be able to more smoothly grasp the new style of play.
Classic Nintendo. We know this is really going to hurt our sales, but it's not right, and we're not going to put it out until we think it's right.
Yep, it's a good sign for this new structure. Is now we're starting to get more announcements out about things now that they've got it all in place.
Yeah, although sad news that this was the big title for the holiday season, and everyone's criticism has been Nintendo doesn't have any big titles these days, so that's going to be a concern. But Miyamoto has always been this way, which is if we don't think it's right, then we're not going to put the game out. So not surprised to see him do that. And like you say, Jenny, kind of a first test of the new administration. The Verge notes that ad blocking apps took up 3 of the top 5 places on the Apple US app chart as of Friday morning. Remember, this is a new feature of iOS 9. One of the apps, Peace, from Marco Arment, has been pulled out of the store. Arment wrote that he thinks ad blockers are still necessary, but he just doesn't feel good making one. He got in a little bit of a fight with John Gruber at Daring Fireball over this because of the way Arment made his app. He had no whitelist. He just said everything gets treated the same. He, meaning Marco Arment, still recommends Ghostery for the desktop and either Purify or Crystal for iOS. Hot topic among people who run advertising-supported media is the ad blockers, because it has an effect, and they're worried that making it popular like this will make it have more of an effect. And obviously, it's a matter of how much you care, how much that more of an effect matters. You know, if you're looking at your bottom line and even just a 1% increase in the usage, you know, knocks out a huge part of your budget, then this is a concern for you.
Yeah, I think it sounds like it would be a good time for all of those concerned advertisers to get together and lock in a room and throw away the key people who have pop-up ads that tell me that a virus is on my computer and I should download their software.
Yeah, that is a big part of this. And the part that right now is not getting the attention because people are talking about the ethics of running an ad blocker. They're trying to change the behavior. And anybody who's been around the internet long enough knows when you try to change people's behavior on the internet, you will have less success. What will have more success is giving people less reason to want to use an ad blocker in the first place. Because the other thing about the internet is if you have to add something to your software to make something happen, people are less likely to do it. So the reason ad blockers are popular is you're pushing them to do it. And if you don't give them the reason to do it, fewer people are going to go and add something to their software if they don't really need to.
Mm-hmm. Paul Gannon 01 and Captain Kipper sent us the very welcome news that the BBC will launch a Netflix-style video subscription service for American audiences next year. Politico, of all places, reports that the new internet-based service will allow U.S. audiences to access BBC programs that aren't already screened on TV channels or available on existing streaming services. Translation, no Doctor Who or Sherlock right away, but thousands of hours of programming that have never made it to the U.S. should be enough to lure most Anglophiles to check out the service. We turn now to DTNS resident Anglophile Tom Merritt.
This is a good thing, although it's not really what I want. What I want is get all the BBC shows, to get Doctor Who, to get Sherlock, to get, well, whatever Top Gear becomes. I guess Top Gear is not really, is going to be on Amazon now, but to get those BBC programs. And I think the thing that really sticks in my craw is that because BBC America is a joint venture between AMC and BBC, none of the BBC America shows, anything like Orphan Black that shows on BBC America, will be prevented from being in this service. So it's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of good back titles and a lot of things, like The Bake Off, or maybe, I don't know, The Voice UK, that will show up on here. That'll be interesting. Erin, are you into looking at British television? Is all this sound
I love
intriguing?
British television, but yeah, I mean, so the thing that I was thinking is I'll be curious to see how that gets promoted when, like you said, kind of all the sexy titles that people are interested. So if it's, Doctor Who or Sherlock or Orphan Black or whatever the case is, I really couldn't tell you a whole depth of what I know is broadcast there that's not available here. So
Call the Midwife?
Yeah, I think you can get that on Roku.
Yeah.
The answer, So yeah, I feel like they would. I have a large degree of faith in the kind of quality of programming of the BBC, but I feel like I would want, kind of better.
I wonder if Planet Earth is available for them to add in for their back catalog. That alone might be worth it there.
That would be awesome. Yeah.
How about back episodes of Doctor Who so I can watch all of them?
Those supposedly, the old episodes should supposedly be in there.
So by the time you get through all of those, the new episodes will be out of their current licensing agreement.
Well, and you can watch the new episodes on Netflix, right?
Sure.
Just not the current season episodes. So yes, as I mentioned, Microsoft has made its own version of Linux. I should not have used the word distro on purpose because, as Mary Jo Foley points out on ZDNet, this is an OS for internal use only. The operating system is known as Azure Cloud Switch, or ACS. It's the showcase for Microsoft's effort to separate switch software from switch hardware. Microsoft will contribute code from ACS to the Open Compute project. So if you work with software-defined networking, this should be of interest. Thanks to metalfreak for the tip-off on this. A lot of headlines are like, cats and dogs sleeping together. Microsoft made Linux. Microsoft has been working with Linux. They've been part of the Open Compute project for quite a while. So this is really just them saying, hey, we're using Linux in this really specific networking-oriented way. But the fact that it's actually a Linux operating system that's made by Microsoft is sort of significant, even if it isn't a distro.
All right. spsheridan sent us the Wired report about the world's largest air purifier, which sits in a park in the city of Rotterdam in the Netherlands, thanks to a collaboration between Dutch designer Daan Roosengaard, Delft Technology University researcher Bob Ursum, and European Nano Solutions, a green tech company based in the Netherlands. The smog-free tower, as it's called, is 23 feet tall and can purify 1 million cubic feet of air every hour. The tower ionizes ionizes airborne smog particles so they don't end up in human lungs. Unlike other ionic air purifiers, this one doesn't produce ozone because the particles are positively charged. Officials in Beijing, Mexico City, and Mumbai have already expressed interest.
Let's be clear, this is an art project.
Yeah.
It's raising awareness about smog. So we could run a little wild with the idea of like, these will be everywhere and rid us of smog. Rusgaard himself says this is not the solution, but he's hoping to raise awareness for what is the solution to get rid of smog, which is reducing emissions. But also, he talks about, there's a funny quote in this article on Wired about how he's like, I'm tired of design being wasted on chairs. I want to do it on cool things like smog-eating towers, which, I can kind of see his point.
I kind of do love that intersection, though, of like design and having some kind of environmental focus. When I was in grad school, I covered sustainability for a little while, and I remember there was this project that the city of Syracuse was doing with clean streets, and they went to some of the parts of town that were kind of having the most trouble and installed these like bioretention areas that kind of extended out from the curb. And it had, these really sort of far-reaching implications for their sort of water collection, goals, but at the same time, it beautified the streets, and it was like this nice sort of, secondary effect that it had on the community. So, in general, I really love the idea.
Yeah, I think the idea of using design to make something more acceptable and create a positive feeling around it is fascinating. You're right. It's a great way to turn something that otherwise would seem like bureaucratic nonsense to some people into something that's like, oh, it has lots of beneficial effects. Because our environment involves our eyes, too.
Yeah. They can put this one right next to the theoretical machine that sucks carbon out of the air and turns it into carbon nanofibers, and they can all just install it in like every building in the world, and then everything's going to be okay.
No, that's what we were trying to say is not going.
Yeah.
The U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission has issued an order filing and settling charges at the same time against CoinFlip for selling options on Bitcoin without complying with the Commodity Exchange Act. It's not that they sold them, it's that they didn't follow regulatory principles. The Commission further stated that it finds that Bitcoin and other virtual currencies are properly defined as commodities. If you didn't know, the U.S. Internal Revenue Agency, or Revenue Service, has previously said it considers virtual currencies to be property. So 2 major agencies in the U.S. have now said, nope, Bitcoin, other virtual currencies, not money. These are going to be regulated pretty much as commodities now, at least here in the U.S. So
yeah.
That's going to cause all kinds of tax headaches for people.
Yeah.
And that's why people are looking at the blockchain more and more in these startups rather than the actual currency, because they're running into some headwinds on using it as a payment system. Because, man, when if I'm a merchant and people pay me in a currency, and then I not only get taxed on my income, but I get taxed on I get property tax because I own the currency, that's a problem.
Just give me a dollar bill.
Go to dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. Help us figure out the stories that we're going to talk about each day on the Daily Tech News Show. We've got more than 5,000 people in there. We will put topics in there. Tyler's been great about putting discussion topics in there. Sometimes we'll put topics that we're going to talk about on the show in there. And submit stories and vote on them. Helps us put the show together every day. That's dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that is a look at the headlines. All right. NASA been working on virtual reality for around 20 years, as we talked about. Erin, how did you get involved in going to NASA to talk to them about their VR?
Yeah, so
I've seen covered very much.
Yeah, it's funny. It's one of the reasons I love Twitter. So basically, this is what happened. In May, I was at the Silicon Valley Virtual Reality Conference in San Jose, California, and I went to this kind of short talk that the lead engineer, Evelyn Morales, for the lab, gave, and she just kind of, gave this really, sort of brief rundown of what they were doing, and I was sitting there like, is everybody hearing this? Like, this is awesome. So I did a very short write-up on it, and she tweeted at me, and, a couple days later, I was like, hey, thanks for the write-up, like, you should come see us sometime. And you can't say that to a reporter because, like, I will show up, you know. So basically I just talked to my editor. I was like, well, you know, if they'll actually, like, let me in, will you send me? And he was all about it. So after some coordination, I was at the Johnson Space Center in August.
It's amazing.
And this lab has been using different types, different models that they've been working on themselves. This is not off-the-shelf stuff. They haven't been going to other companies. They didn't get a Virtual Boy from Nintendo at some point. But since 1991, they've been trying out different displays. Mm-hmm. How do they feel now that lots of other people are doing that too?
Well, they're excited. I mean, they're kind of looking at basically everything that's about to hit the market, they're keeping an eye on. And it's not a super easy process for them to just say, like, hey, you know what, like, the Oculus CV1 is going to be out in January, like, we can just use that. I mean, because everything is so homemade, like, integration is a huge issue, and it requires, like, a lot of care and a lot of testing. So they're excited, and they're, you know, kind of in that exploratory phase. But also, like, when like I said, whenever a kind of new technology comes out that, you know, kind of, they have to be a little bit patient and make sure it's steady and stable and all that before they do anything. But the thing that they told me that I really loved is they were saying, well, this is great that everybody's paying so much attention, because that means that you have all this money and time and, you know, brain power getting sort of funneled toward VR, because they're a pretty small operation, and they don't, you know, they can't do some massive, you know, research project on how to deal with, like, simulation sickness. So they'll definitely benefit from, you know, this wave that's kind of happening right now.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about what they're using it for.
Yeah, so training basically breaks up 3 ways. The first thing is EVA training, which is extravehicular activities, so spacewalks, basically. So with this training, for example, if there was a mission that required, like, an astronaut to be attached, dangling off of the end of the, you know, robotic arm, and dealing with the, you know, his partner who's flying him, you know, they could run simulations and kind of, you know, go through those types of tasks that they would be accomplishing in that mission. The other thing is mass handling, and I think this is so fascinating. But basically, the idea is that, you know, when they're out in space, you know, if an astronaut has to, let's say, move some, you know, piece of the International Space Station, it could be something that's like the size of a bus that weighs...
Like one of the solar panels. Those things are
like,
huge.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, one of the solar arrays that, you know, can weigh thousands of pounds. And, you know, the idea that you have is, like, yes, it's weightless because it's in space, but the thing is it still has mass, and it still has a center of gravity. So you need to know how to negotiate this. I got to talk to Doug Wheelock, who's, you know, one of the astronauts, and he was saying that the rules of physics still apply. They're different, but they still apply. So, you know, you could hold this thing up with one finger, but if that thing starts moving in a direction and you try and, like, hold on to it, it could rip your glove off. Mm. So that's mass handling. And then the other thing is SAFER training, which is an acronym that basically means this is how they prepare in case they were to become detached from the space station. And they have jetpacks, is basically kind of what it is, that have just enough juice to get them back in case that happened. And again, that's kind of another case of how, like, orbital mechanics come into play, because it's not just as easy as, like, hey, let me grab this joystick and, like, just get back to the, you know, space station. So that's
not like George Clooney then.
Exactly right. Yeah, that was one of the first things they were saying. It's like, okay, kind of like gravity, but like, you know.
So here's my question, which is, did you try it on, and what was it like?
I did, which was very exciting, because I think through, like, this whole process, it was almost like a later revelation to me that was like, I'm probably going to get to do this, you know, which is cool. So basically, the simulation I did was just, you know, I put on the headset and the gloves so I can, you know, do this whole bit and see astronaut hands. And it's kind of like being picked up by the scruff of your neck, really, and they just flew me around the International Space Station. And so, you know, I can kind of look down and, okay, oh, there's the Earth, and, you know, over my shoulder I can look far back in the distance, and there's the moon. And they had just updated one of the headsets a couple days before, so it was like 1920 by 1080p. So it was so sharp, each eye.
Yeah, what are the graphics like? Like, what does it actually look like through that thing? Does it look like the best video game ever, or does it look like when you're looking at the blue marble?
It's the way that I put it. So, and I put this in the story. It's not like 100% photoreal, but it's so close that you can really just suspend, belief for a second. And they actually have this poster that's like outside of the lab that's like very large, and it's sort of this, this image of the Earth and part of the space station. And so the public affairs officer I was with was telling me that, it took him a really long time to realize that that wasn't a photo. And I just had this moment where I was looking at it, and I got really close up to it, and I was like, oh my God, that's not a photo, So it's sharp. It's really sharp.
Now, you wrote an article about the takeaways from this, which I thought was great. And one of the takeaways I found fascinating, at one point, they had to choose in the early days between latency and detail, because they just didn't have the technology to handle both yet, this back in the earlier days of it. And so they asked the astronauts which they wanted, and I thought it was very interesting what the astronauts wanted and your takeaway of why it was good for them to do that, to ask the astronauts.
Sure, yeah. So that relationship between the lab and the astronauts has just been incredibly important over the years. And so, yeah, they were, having to pick between better latency or better graphics. And, you would think that maybe latency would be the priority, but in talking to the astronauts, who really are their customers, they said they'd rather have the details, that was more helpful in preparing. And that in space, they're so slow and so deliberate about the way that they move that even if, it takes a fraction of a second for the scene to update as they turn their heads, they're going to be turning their heads so slowly that it really didn't matter like that much to them. And so there have been some instances like that have really let the lab sort of sidestep some of these signature problems that the broader virtual reality industry has had over the years. And in that particular case, what was cool is that they just got to keep going and looking at sort of other innovation and what other ways that they can improve themselves. And it just kind of gave them a little bit of more room that the technology could, catch up to where it is today. And that was not something that just had to completely, sideline them. And so early on, in 1992 or something.
So here's the thing, which is obviously they're excited about everybody else getting into the VR space to help them solve all these problems. But did you find in your course of your reporting that the VR business was coming to them for their wealth of 20 years of experience? Because it seems like this sort of undiscovered pocket of information.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's one of those things that's sort of leaking out more and more, and I know that they do in certain respects and at certain times kind of play the role of consultant a little bit, And I think that what also happens is because they're getting more out into the world and people are becoming more aware of them, I would think that those people are going to start turning their attention more and trying to pull from that, 20-year kind of depth of knowledge, So, for example, they were telling me about, the company Sixth Sense, which is sort of, VR, 3D graphics, entertainment, and they have a wireless tracking system that's electromagnetic based. And the lab also has a similar tracking system, but it's not wireless. And so I think about the communication that might happen between the two, or really any other company that's out there, and you just kind of get the sense I'm sure that everyone's going to benefit from that kind of dialogue. So.
Well, you wrote an excellent article, and anybody who's interested in what we've talked about already should definitely go read it at techrepublic.com. We'll have a link in the show notes as well. There's lots of photos and everything. Well done. How exciting. Really cool.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great. It was something that we just kind of couldn't wait to finally get up on the site,
Yeah. I can tell why. It's a really interesting story. Our pick of the day comes from Tom, the energy IT consultant. After settling on the fast and sparse but still customizable Xubuntu, He quickly found matches for all his regular software, went to the Arch Wiki as well as alternative2.net. And Tom says, I've been enjoying the unique features like enhanced privacy, vast customizability, as well as comprehensive software updates. Hence, I would wholeheartedly recommend Linux to all listeners out there. He's a Ubuntu, ex-Ubuntu enthusiast. So there's his pick. Send your picks to us, feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com, and you can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A few emails before we get out of here. Rich from lovely Cleveland is talking about all the recent news about luxury automakers, Porsche, for instance, getting into electric cars, and he said, there was a much more blasé announcement in the field that will probably have more of an impact on people's lives. Nissan just announced an updated 2016 Leaf that has finally exceeded the 100-mile on-a-charge threshold. Rich says, I think the 100-mile mark is a considerable psychological barrier for a lot of people, and it makes the Leaf feel much less like a novelty. While its starting price is not exactly entry-level, $30,000, government tax incentives put the lease price at a more affordable level. So does that encourage any of you to go for a Leaf?
I am trying to take my 2002 Jeep Grand Cherokee to the absolute limit of its driving so that the next car I get is either all electric or at very least a hybrid. And I feel like announcements like this make it so much closer if my car engine will keep turning over.
Daniel in It Finally Rained a Little Bit, San Diego. Congratulations on the rain, Daniel. We got some too. Says, there is one thing that voice input has consistently done better for me, and that is calendar events. It's so much easier to say, add a meeting with my bosses on Friday at 3 for 2 hours than it is to fuss with dials and dates to input times. Lots of people writing in. We got Kimberly writing in about how she and her daughter have dyslexia, and so using voice input is been a lifesaver for them. And one of her sons uses it to look up stats for baseball players that he doesn't know how to spell their name, but he knows how to say the name. So yes, lots of people are finding good uses for voice input. I'm curious, Erin, do you use your voice assistant on your phone much?
I actually don't. Yeah, I've always, I hate to say this, almost kind of like I love pen and paper and then just, kind of type away. So
I just don't want to say stuff out loud. I'm probably just overly sensitive about it. Jennie, do you use the voice assistant much?
So not on the phone, but I am rapidly falling in love with Amazon Echo's Alexa as if she is my adopted daughter. Because there's something about just being in the other room and going, hey, Alexa, and then that immediate last mile problem has been solved because the moment I think it, I can just say it out loud without having to go find my phone.
Although I ran into a problem with the Amazon Echo when I wanted to add a grocery item to the shopping list early in the morning while people were asleep.
Yes, that does happen. You just have to not care about other people. And also, you really can... you can lower her volume, but it would be nice. You're right. It would be nice to have a silent mode for Alexa so that she just kind of like blinks that pretty color at you and like received information instead of saying,
if you could say,
thank you, I have it.
If you could say, Alexa, keep this quiet.
Yeah.
Add the following. And she goes, okay. It's added.
Yeah, but they turn over. I'm sorry, they turn over those updates so fast that you get the sense they're really invested in this, and they're really invested in little details like that. That's what I kind of like about it.
And Ryan has a quick tip for people like me who don't like talking out loud in public to their virtual assistant. He says, for a person who values personal privacy, as I too am not fond of speaking to my phone out loud, I find whispering into the mic is just as effective and avoids the unnecessary drawing of attention to yourself. So there you go. Even if they can't whisper back to you, you can still whisper to them. Mm-hmm. And Siri doesn't talk back as much as the Amazon Echo does. And I apologize to everyone's Amazon Echo that just got set off because we said the name.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully they'll fix that too. Thank you, Erin Carson, for joining us. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Lots of fun.
Go find Erin's work at Tech Republic. She covers more than just VR helmets at NASA. There's lots of good stuff there.
True.
So this just went up yesterday, I think. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yesterday morning.
So techrepublic.com. And where can people find you otherwise?
I'm on Twitter, at Erin Carson. And that's sort of, I'm on there all the time, so hit me up.
Jennie
Yeah.
Josephson, of course, is our producer on the show, so her work is evident every day on Daily Tech News Show. But you can also go subscribe to Tell It Anyway at tellitanyway.com. And you just had Scott Johnson on your show.
It was one of my favorite episodes ever. It was Scott telling, surprise, a doctor story, and a really wonderful story from my friend Greta about the really hilarious things that happened to her when she had cancer, which is an unlikely sentence if I've ever heard one, but that's Greta. And if you're at all interested in the Emmys, I had an amazing story about meeting a TV legend who gave us enduring life lessons at the Emmys 10 years ago. So go check it out, tellitanyway.com.
And Len Peralta has been drawing. What? That's amazing, Len.
I changed it a little bit. It was just supposed to be like a little dude, but I thought I had never met Erin before. I thought it would be kind of funny since she said she wore it to kind of draw Erin actually wearing it. I know this is not exactly how it went, but the one thing
just like that actually.
It was the one thing about it that I thought is like they've been working on it for 20 years, and that's quite a long time in my years. And it reminded me of what were happening in 1991. So you can see here it says NASA nailed virtual reality. It actually feels like I'm watching Clarissa Explains It All while at a Color Me Bad concert in space. So there's a couple things that they still needed to work on other than nailing the actual VR thing. So there you go. That's today's little drawing called NASA Explains It All.
Now, did you put on a blue spacesuit along with it, or is that what you look like when you look down at yourself?
Oh, I wish that they had man blue spacesuits. But yeah, I mean, it kind of covers so much of your face that you can't quite look down. But if you look over, because there's the capability to have like two people under the headsets at once, you can see like an astronaut floating beside you. So,
oh, that's pretty cool.
Pretty magical.
That's pretty cool. Well, folks,
Yeah.
if you want to take a look at this yourself, go to lenperaltastore.com, and you can see the digital version of it. And you can even buy a print if you like. He's still working on it right now.
Yes, I am. Actually, I just do the little NASA logo on there. There's a little NASA logo on the VR thing. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you, Len.
No
appreciate
problem.
that.
Thank you for having me.
lenperaltastore.com. Thanks to everybody who supports our show, dailytechnewsshow.com/support. We could not do it without you. If you're one of the 5% or so people who actually give us a little bit of your money in exchange for the value you get from the show, we cannot thank you enough. We appreciate it to the ends of the earth. You've changed our ability to understand what we could possibly do, and so we thank you so much. dailytechnewsshow.com/support if you would like to be one of those people. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can give us a call, 512-59-DAILY. That's 593-2459. Listen to the show live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com, and visit our website, dailytechnewsshow.com. Back on Monday with Veronica Belmont. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
That was a great show.
Yay!
That was awesome. I love having new people on this show, and you were terrific, Erin.
Thank
Yeah, you
you
were great. Good
Cool.
job, Erin.
I'm glad. I was kind of looking at all the stories earlier and just like, oh. So hopefully that was all right.
No, that was perfect. We wanted you to come on and talk about your story. Everything else was gravy, so you were awesome.
Sweet. That was cool. Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Now, what we do
Awesome.
afterwards is we just sit around and chat while I edit the show, but you don't have to stick around for that. We know you're busy, so if you need to take off, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I might just split in just a second. I want to read through, and I was watching the chat through.
Oh, yeah. Go say hi to the chat realm. The folks over there are awesome.
Cool. Yeah.
And they submit amazing titles of our shows. It's showbot.tv. Leading the pack right now is Houston, We Have Awesome, which that's pretty great. And then To Virtually Go, Where No One Has Gone Before.
I like it. That is true.
Yeah. And then let's see. Oh, One If by Broadband,
Which
Two
one?
If by Stream. Wow, Dark Redeemer on Fuego.
Yeah.
Let's see what
So,
else.
Erin, if you had a preference, would you say Houston, We Have Awesome, or To Virtually Go Where No One Has Gone Before?
Oh, that's hard. I kind of like the virtually one, I think.
Yeah?
Maybe.
All right. I was
Yeah.
kind of leaning that way too. So
Yeah.
let's do that.
Cool.
We have a title. Houston.
That's pretty cool.
I like show me the commodity. That's going to be Master.
Show me the commodity. It just loses something. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Then also Beatmaster with the Desolation of Smog, which, you know, for a Hobbit fan,
Right.
oh, that's pretty good.
That's pretty awesome. The desolation of
Smog.
smog, not Smaug.
Yeah, not Smaug, Smog. And of course, I've always wanted an oblong dongle. I can't tell the difference between an oblong and a circular when it's at that distance. It's just,
Yeah.
it's round. It's got a
Well,
round little...
You know, the thing that I was thinking of, so I've got one of the pretty simple Rokus, and the thing that I like about it is, like, most of the time I'm just not aware that it's there, you know, because it blends in.
Just
with, like,
works.
my other setup, and also I'm, like, half blind if I don't wear my glasses, so it's great. It's like magic. The stuff just, like, you know, appears on my TV.
Yeah, I had to set up the Google Chromecast, no joke, 6 times every time I tried to use it, and it just wasn't quite there in terms of the interface, and I was bummed because the premise is terrific. So hopefully this will knock it out.
Yeah.
I didn't have any problems setting the Chromecast up. It sounded like you were having some confusion and issues around because you have to connect.
Locking on.
What's that?
It was who was locking on. To me, it was who was within my house. It was the Chromecast. When you set it up, it temporarily creates its own Wi-Fi network
you use Wi-Fi to configure it.
Right, to configure. And then the configuration was staying forever, and then my laptop would try to log onto that as a wireless network. The configuration part never went away. It would just stay there.
Well, your laptop, you just needed to tell, right? But
Right.
So the Chromecast was never connecting with your Wi-Fi network.
Well, it would, and then it would set itself up in that long, arduous back and forth process. But then the configuration network always stayed. Like, that network always stayed, and so my laptop would try to log in, and then after a certain point, the Chromecast would no longer be logged in, and it was just sort of like this infinite loop of not working, and me having to think
sounded like you
about
needed
it.
to tell your laptop to forget that network, and because maybe
Right.
it was confusing the Chromecast, but the Chromecast should know better.
Right.
So that's interesting.
Right. It's from Google. So we'll see. But yeah, I think I'm super excited. And if everybody wanted to know what was the thing that got me to come out from behind the logo, it was VR in space. That's the standard.
That's
Nice.
awesome. Yeah, I was thinking, it's like, how can you go wrong? It's a great combo, you know. So,
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
It's a headline built for clicks, but then it also delivers on substance, right? That's the best part about it.
I'm glad about that. But yeah, it's been exciting because it's just like one of those stories I like just genuinely want to get kind of as far out there as possible. So it's been nice to be like, please read.
Well, and they sound like a cool team. Like, I want to work there.
Oh my
Yeah.
God! So yeah, and Evelyn Morales, who's the lead engineer, she's incredible. She's just like just such a cool lady, and she actually yesterday found out that she made CNET Español's like list of the 20 most influential Latinos for
Oh, that's fantastic.
2015. So it was like this, you know. So yeah, I was kidding. It was like a heck of a day for Evelyn Morales and CBS, But yeah, so that was kind of just like a happy thing. But yeah, I mean, I got to spend like tons of time with her, and just great person to talk to. So
I love your description of how she like tunes in to all the EVAs because she's like,
Super nervous about it.
like these are my babies. Like this,
Exactly.
that's awesome.
yeah, well, that's the funny thing is they realize that every single astronaut comes through the lab. And so they kind of know them, and they spend, I can't remember if this made it in the story or not, but it's like you ask any of these astronauts, so how much time do you think, you've spent in the lab? And they're like, oh my God, I don't even know, like, a lot of time. That's how many, a lot, So it's cool, because it's like they, want to making friends and all that sort of thing, so it's so close to home for them,
That's such a cool story.
It is. And just on the journalism front, it's really hard to take those stories that are like a huge amount of science and also a really cool bunch of people in a room working together. And I thought you did such a great job of doing like really great long-form journalism that's hard to do. So I was really impressed as a former and a sort of current. I was super impressed. So.
Sure. Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, spent like a lot of time trying to figure out. Because, yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing is you have kind of multiple timelines going. I mean, you could discuss the history of the lab on hardware alone. You could, discuss it on software alone and just the people. And there's kind of compelling parts to all of that. But then it's like, how do you actually
weave that together? Yeah.
Yeah, get it to congeal. So, but yeah, I'm glad that all kind of came off all right because it's definitely spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, okay, what's the magic mix here,
Well, it's a testament to you that you made it look easy. Like, I don't sit there thinking like, oh, wow, it must have been hard to go through this. Like, I just read a story and enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm very, very happy to hear that. Thanks. Yeah, but it was fun. It was a pretty condensed process. Like, the last long form I did was sort of about, like VR in a broader sense, and it was like, why will this work this time, supposedly? And I think I took maybe about 2.5 months, to do it. Sure. And in that time, I think had about like 10 hours of interview, and that when you do it like that, you kind of have some of these natural stopping points. You have like, okay, here's my first round of interviews, and then I'm going to pause and see what I have, and go back. And but with this one, it was like, the entire reporting process, for the most part, was, like 4 days. And just, sort of after that, just a lot of, organization.
A compressed timeline.
Yeah.
So do you do a lot of reporting on VR? Like, would you be considered like a VR beat reporter?
I would, yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting to know, Erin Carson.
Yeah.
For no reason whatsoever.
No, I have just found that I'm so fascinated with VR, and I kind of picked up this beat basically in about January or so of this year. And it kind of grew off of this thing, because one of my other beats is social media and how, like, businesses use it and that sort of thing. And I had talked to someone at GE. Yeah, it was GE. Who they had done this sort of like branded VR experience, and I was like, oh, that's interesting, and just kind of like getting more into it. It just, I kind of got to the point like around first of the year was like I was talking to Jason and was like, I think we really need to actually focus, to some degree on this. So yeah, it's been really great. I've gotten to do one other long form. And then kind of as stuff, comes up. I mean, like I got to go out to F8.
Wow.
In March, and and that was great because like the day 2 keynote was about VR and kind of their plans for it and all that. So I try and as best I can, because we are more features based, sort of like do like the second day like deeper dive on if there's something that's breaking.
Yeah. Are you going to Oculus Connect?
I'm actually not. I'm going to be in San Francisco next week.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, can't complain. But, yeah, I'm curious about if there's anything kind of interesting that'll pop up.
GPEG in our chat room wants to know, do you cover AR, so augmented reality at all?
Yeah, not as much, but it's something that I kind of want to maybe do a little bit more of, because what it seems to me like, I mean, when people talk about sort of, what, if any of this winds up being sort of everyday use, I think AR is really kind of
it, yeah.
Where that's going. But I do, if, stuff comes up with like HoloLens, that kind of falls to me. So kind of VR plus
yeah, they're straddling the continuum there with HoloLens, which is really interesting to see what they're going to end up doing. It was so sad that one that was on the rocket that it exploded.
I know, isn't that crazy? But I just saw something maybe like a day or two ago that they're going to send another one up pretty soon. I think before the end of the year. So I think that would be good. But it was like, what what timing?
Yeah.
But yeah. So
awesome.
Well, I'm out of the post, so we're done.
We did it.
Yeah.
Sounds
I gotta
good.
go pick up my son.
All right.
Bye, Lynn. Awesome art.
Thanks,
See you
Lynn.
later. Thank
Good
you.
work as always.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good
really
meeting
cool.
you.
Nice
care.
to meet you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Cool.